So first thing we're going to do, as every day, we come to Forex Factory, check the news. Now I have the news filtered right here, so the yellow low impact folders are not going to pop up, just to keep it a little cleaner. Here you can see the main focus for us today, at least for me while I'm trading, was the unemployment claims numbers coming out. It's not a high impact event, but this OPEC high impact event doesn't really impact my trading at all. It impacts oil prices. I'm not trading oil. It might shake up CAD. Maybe it's why CAD is ripping today. I don't know. Maybe. Not going to stretch and make that assumption. But the unemployment claims news definitely can shake up the market. Previous was 194,000. The actual today is lower than the forecast. The forecast was going to be about 240,000. It came out closer to 220,000. Now, we're going to turn and, like I said, go over my NASDAQ trade first, the short position that I took this morning off the D1 entry. But before we go into that, just to throw you over to here to CNBC, U.S. weekly jobless claims total 222,000 versus the 240K estimate. It says here, initial claims for unemployment insurance rose last week, but held at levels consistent with how the job market looked before COVID-19. First-time filings for the week ended in November 27th, totaled 222,000, less than 240,000 that Wall Street expected. That was higher than 194,000 from the previous week, but that total, the lowest since 1969, was revised even lower from the initial 199,000 reported. So last week, very, very low right here. You can see that 194K right here. But as you can see, starting to level off here a little bit more at the bottom, which is good. The higher this number is, it's the amount of people that are filing for unemployment insurance. So as that's going down, you would correlate that to saying people going back to work, people not needing the unemployment insurance. So that is the major news event that we were watching this morning, and it's kind of showing strength in the U.S. economy. Now, stocks took a super strong hit yesterday. That's kind of what fed my short bias today on NASDAQ. You can see it happened yesterday afternoon at about 1 o'clock, 12:45 my time. The reason for that tank across all the indices, if you look at the US 30 as well, that pushed lower yesterday afternoon. Same thing with US 500, that pushed lower at the same time yesterday. That was because there's of course a bunch of reasons for why it could be, but I would say the markets, CNBC, everybody was talking about the first Omicron, whatever, variant detection here in the US and California. That's probably why the market reacted the way it did. Now, when the Delta variant came out, the market dropped 4%. That's at about where we are at currently, off all-time highs. The difference being when the Delta variant came out, we were not at all-time highs. So maybe this Omicron virus variant is going to have a stronger impact and maybe potentially giving us a stronger pullback. One more thing before I go into the trade. If you just look at the daily chart on these indexes, not looking great. US 500, the S&P 500, broke under the 50 EMA yesterday, which of course, if you look back over time, the 50 is a great place to be buying it if you're going to hold it. But if you look back just to recently, when we broke the 50 on September 17th, we didn't get back above the 50 until a month later. So it could be a month or more potentially of chop or drop. In my opinion, whenever we get a break of the 50 and we have divergence on top where you have price rising and the RSI falling, that sends me the idea that this could come down to the 200, which would be a pretty strong pullback off all-time highs. That would be a 10% or so pullback, a 9.5% pullback, which would be tough. So that's the S&P 500. US 30 looks even more bearish. You see how that broke the 50 and dropped all the way to the 200, exactly what I was saying. That's back to this level from September as well. That looks very, very bearish. The NASDAQ is like the in-betweener. It's just at the 50 right now, still unsure if it's going to hold the 50 and come up or break the 50 and move lower like the S&P and like the US 30, like the Dow. But for me, like I said, the 50 EMA is a great buying level. Now, I'm not bullish based on this daily time frame today. In fact, I'm bearish. So if we flip to my trade this morning, I'm just following the trend from yesterday. Again, it moved lower. You can see we set that Asian range high last night. Those are futures markets trading. That's what you're looking at when you see this moving overnight. That high is respected once, twice, you could say 3 times, so to speak, here across that top. That's at like 15,951. Once we moved off that level, you can see right here at about 4:45, 5 a.m., we had the 8 and 21 EMAs cross down. The reason why I was short biased today was not just because of the movement yesterday, but also because of the market sentiment today. You can see the yellow line on the TDI holding the sell zone fits really, really well. So once we get the downshift, and I woke up at about 6 o'clock this morning, I'm already going to come to this and see it as a short biased pair. To me, the market sentiment, the EMAs, the move yesterday, all three of those things feed the bias. The fact that we then get the shift down then gets me interested. Okay, now we might get an entry signal with this bias. So then what I did was I go to the 1-minute chart and I find this bearish divergence here at about 4:30. You can see from the RSI high, and I'll blow this up just so it's a little bigger. from the RSI high right here at 419, you can see that's the RSI high, to the price action high right here at 4:24 a.m., price is rising, RSI is falling. That is technically bearish divergence. Now, you can see where my entry is off the 50 EMA here. It comes a little bit about 2 hours or so after that divergence sets in. I'm watching when I was awake, but here I see lower highs coming in. By the time I was awake at 6 o'clock, we've already made 3 solid lower highs off the divergence. So my position was right here with a stop. So I took the entry off the 50 EMA, just like we teach in the advanced course for the D1 entry. Market sentiment is in a great position for sells. We're still riding that D1 structure. I could have kept my stop here, but I felt that that would be too close, the most recent structure here. So I just went with this one. Not a big difference in my risk reward, so I just gave it a little bit more space. It dropped for me pretty quickly off the 50, retested my entry once, held the L50 in the sell zone when it did throw that retest, and then came right off the 50, and that's where it accelerated. I closed half the position right here, up about 2.4R, not even an hour after taking the trade, so very pain-free. And then I took another 25% off here as it hit the bottom at about 8:45, 9 o'clock when I just posted that second video to Twitter. Now, I still have a small piece in because I closed 50% and then 25% of what I had left, so I'm still in the trade small. My stop loss is locked under my entry price, which means I can't lose money when the market opens in 15 minutes if it wants to spike up. But if the market wants to turn down and head lower, I can make a little bit more money on this thing. Now, futures this morning, S&P is green, Dow is green just barely, but NASDAQ futures are still red, oil futures are red, and the 10-year is still red. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to this when market opens, but the EMAs here on the 15-minute are telling me to stay short biased. Price is holding the 8 is under the 21, market sentiment, RSI, everything is still in the sell zone. And like I said, the big thing here, everybody, I closed majority of the position already as it's moved almost 5R. So it's been a pain-free trade, super easy to manage, to follow the rules that we teach in the course, to follow the rules that I built for everybody to follow. It's pretty textbook, to be honest. And you're going to see this repeated as I go over a couple other trades today. The same divergence, 1 minute, 15-minute setup. Any questions on the NASDAQ and why this was my trade of the day so far?